All right, all right, all right. We are live.
What's
We,
up?
we are live. How is it going, everybody? Thanks
Howdy,
for
howdy.
thanks for tuning in. We've got a fun one today. We are going to be
Oh yeah.
we're going to be diving deep into the titular name Hyrophant, what it means and what it means to you. So stay tuned for that. But first, let's do a couple brief introductions. Again, my name is Phil. I'm with Fanatics Publishing. We were a game and comic shop for 10 years, and now we've turned into kind of a game and comic publisher. And that's what we're working on really hard right now. So, Tyler,
Cool.
introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Tyler Lindsay. I'm a lifetime card gamer turned game designer. I met Phil at Fanatics. I was a regular there before ultimately becoming their first employee. And it's kind of funny because we've come full circle almost a decade later, hard to believe, as Phil is relaunching, Fanatics as a publishing handle. And looks like Hierophant is poised to be the flagship release. So,
The,
a lot to look forward to as far as that's concerned.
the flagship franchise property, Hierophant.
Definitely.
So yeah, before we jump into what that word means to us and what it will mean to you, let's do a couple announcements and shout outs. First off, let me switch the view over to my show and tell screen here. And first off, if you're not checking us out yet on other channels that you browse, be sure to check out our links down in the bio and in the About section. You can sign up for our newsletter where we'll be dropping some interesting game information in the coming months. We'll also have other streams and YouTube videos going live, so you can get all those channels right there on our LinkedIn. Next up, I'd like to give a shout out to TwoBeardsPlay. They recently had me on to talk about Fanatics Publishing because they were regulars at the store as well, and they were some dungeon masters, Travis and Trey, great D&D people. They have an awesome YouTube community. Be sure to check them out. They've come to Fanaticon every year, and yeah, they've been a big part of the store, and so they saw we were active again in game design. They wanted to be a part of it. So be sure to check those guys out. Next up, we've got Pixelated Thoughts podcast. Again, another customer of the store. He reached out. He's like, "Oh, Fanatics is back," and I said, "Not quite," but they were very curious in what that meant. And so we got on there and talked to these people. So be sure to check out Pixelated Thoughts podcast. A lot of cool stuff going on there. And I have a surprise show and tell. Actually, the last one is this Kickstarter for this ridiculous comic book called Roadkill du Jour. Absolutely wild story about a biker who gains the powers of the roadkill he eats. I know that's crazy, guys.
Oh,
It's like
that is badass.
it's kind of wild, and I've got the book here. The reason I wanted to brag about them because Inverse Presse, was another really nice hardback book they just sent me because I backed them on Kickstarter. They're just a really cool company. They've been publishing comics for like 10 years, maybe 13 years now. They came to the first Fanaticon too, or the second one. But they were an awesome company from Alabama. So yeah, just wanted to kind of brag about them. They mailed me their Kickstarter rewards. Appreciate that, Kevin. Thank you so much for getting it to me so fast. So yeah, just a little surprise show and tell there. And that concludes the announcements for this week. You can check all those people out in the links in the bio on our video on demand, which is on YouTube. So, big reminder to subscribe to our YouTube channel where you can kind of go deeper into some of the topics we talk about. So, yeah, Hierophants. Any announcements on your end, Tyler? How's things going for you, man? What's new?
Oh, it is a windy, chilly day here in Colorado, but I am hanging in there. Just plugging along on this game. I'm excited because this is the first episode where I really get to kind of lift the veil a little bit on the game end of Hierophant. So I'm really excited to share that with you guys.
Yeah, it's a frigid 60 degrees here in Alabama. So, I
Oh,
think.
dude, hang in there. Hope you got your propane.
Yeah, we're trying to make it work, though. We're trying. All right. So without further ado, hey, what's up, Subi Sire? Thanks for the comment. Thanks for joining us today. Um,
Tuning in.
thanks for everybody watching. Actually, we appreciate it. Be sure to hit that follow button and drop your questions in the chat for the Q&A here at the end of the session. And just or yell at us at any time. We will read your comment. We appreciate the participation for sure. So let's just jump right in. Hierophants, kind of a spooky name, kind of a mysterious name. It's obviously means something to us because it's the name of the game, Hierophant.
Right.
So yeah, Tyler, Hierophant. Where did we get that from? Where'd you get that from? How did this come
So
about?
obviously, yeah, coming up for a name is like a tall order, and for people like you and I, like kind of perfectionists, it can be one of the hardest parts,
So hard.
because that's the singular word or words that's going to just basically sum up the entirety of your project. So for us, we knew that we wanted to create a universe that took old like traditions of like, vampirism and werewolves and took all of that and brought it into the far future. So yeah, it was a tall order for us in particular in trying to find a term that somehow evoked feelings of both. So for us, it was taking a term that is very, archaic and traditional in Hierophant, which Phil will soon explain like what that actually means for those of you who don't know, and giving it our own unique style by adding that Y, which you'll see throughout our entire universe as we continue to delve into that. But ultimately, it was the fusion of old and new and trying to find a term that summarized what we consider to be the key players in this story, which are the Hierophants.
Yep. And what's fun about the term Hierophant is it's kind of derived from an older term that, it's an interpreter of sacred mysteries and arcane principles. It's kind of an ancient Greek term. I'm not going to try and pronounce those words live on air, but yeah, the two meanings is something like holy and something to show. These are like, delvers of mysteries and things like that. And when you take that term and put it through the lens of a cyberpunk universe, it can mean a lot of cool things. So
Definitely.
that's kind of where we came up with the name, how the name came to be. And then we can jump right in if you want. We can go ahead and move on into how it affects the universe in a way.
Yeah, definitely.
So as he mentioned, he dropped some terms like vampirism and werewolves. Like in our card game, if you notice, the tagline is where the myths of the past come alive in the far future. So in our universe, a large amount of reality-breaking data is just released, and this data confirms the existence of what we would call mythical creatures. Unfortunately, this data was accidentally hacked by someone that maybe shouldn't have been getting into that stuff, but they release it on a type of dark web. However, accessing this data with, cyberpunk technologies like AR, VR, Neuralinks, other brain-connected interfaces, it's extremely dangerous. Like, you don't want to wander into this data block. I mean, it could just scramble your brain, literally. And so these early adventurers, these early people who figure out ways to do so, they become known as the Hierophants. They're skilled enough and able to translate and research that data and ultimately become a new class of virtual and IRL adventurers. They were kind of given the term Hierophant based on that ability to kind of divulge these secrets of this mystical paradigm shifting data, which unfortunately confirms a new reality for the people of this world. So now that crazy pitch all the way to now, the year 2399 where the game takes place, they've evolved into like this pseudo leadership class in our world, Altera. Altera is kind of like the renaming of this last attempt by society to build out a future for its denizens, which is no longer mankind or humankind. I mean, it's a melting pot now, not only cultures, but species, alien and it's crazy. And so, of course, the people who are able to become ambassadors between those species, or at least explain it to the common person, they become known as Hierophants. And that takes them into new territory. They become leaders outside just not only the realm of like corporations, factions, or governments. They become leaders in their own right. People follow them for answers and clues to what this new reality may mean or what it may have meaned in the past. They are extremely skilled at navigating data, planning for how it may impact society, and thus, by an extension, they become really good at organizing causes or groups and things like that. Together, all those attributes create a class of leader that can handle extreme complexities of a post-cyberpunk civilization that we're trying to portray in this narrative. So that's the short pitch of what a Hierophant is.
Definitely. I mean, I think a lot of people understand the principle that history is essentially cyclical. As Phil explained, like the term Hierophant previously is like interpreter of a sacred text. Obviously, in an age of information, especially as far out as, did we say the setting yet?
The year 2399,
Yeah,
which
there
could
you go.
change. It's okay. I mean, hey, everything's
It's
flexible.
very far in the future.
Very far in the
So
future.
the
Post
idea is
cyberpunk.
like fundamentally, yeah, like what a Hierophant is the same. It's just what it is they're translating isn't necessarily sacred texts, but petabytes of reality shifting information that the average person couldn't fathom. Very Lovecraftian inspiration there.
Willie Jim chimed in. So it's basically Neo from the Matrix. I would say
More.
I would say sort of. Like, he does kind of become aware of a new, but his experience is actually like, I don't know, it's kind of even more meta. We're talking about you, Willie Jim. You get to find out that it's not just a virtual reality you're part of. No, your actual reality is shifting. Like,
Yeah, this is all real.
so it is kind of like Neo in a sense, but it's a little bit more human, or inhuman technically, because there's hierophants from all these new species. So yeah, I mean, that's definitely some inspiration though. You know, I love the Matrix and the way they portray kind of like reality and what it means to be a part of technology and tuned in. But unfortunately, for people still in the Matrix, they aren't aware of that. Now imagine if everyone in the Matrix literally has to deal with the fact that, like, yeah, all those movies about vampires, werewolves, and aliens kind of was propaganda, and you're going to have to like learn to live with them people, you know, or what it means to learn with those people. And you have to learn what it even means to be a vampire or werewolf or alien, or, you know, we have a couple races we haven't even like shared yet, because as you know, we're developing an RPG world book. And so there's going to be all kinds of new things coming out. But yeah, excellent comment though. I love that. With an Uno reverse card. I love it.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Uno, huge inspiration, all aspects of this design, from the lore to the
Yep.
game.
Which, by
Big
the
Uno.
way, for those watching, Willie Jim was the host of Pixelated Podcast that we talked about in the announcements. So be sure to check him out. He streams from time to time. He came to Fanaticon. Obviously, he was a customer of mine, so I'm going to be nice to him, even though he is a self-proclaimed troll, as he likes to say. But all right, awesome. We're getting in there. All right, we got the LOL. We got him to LOL. We're good.
All right, all is well.
So yeah, that's the Hyrophant. It's an interesting class, and like you'll get a chance to choose one to represent you, the player. But before we get to that, let's talk about conflicts and motivations within a story. Because as you know, we're developing this universe. It's the flagship property of Fanatics. It's going to involve a world building book, a potential RPG supplement, a trading card game designed by Tyler, and ultimately one day it'll have some comics to go with it, a comic series to kind of get to the granular storytelling in the world. So these characters have to be motivated in something has to create conflict. So before we get to that, let's talk about just conflict and motivations in storytelling, and kind of talk about how we arrived at some of these decisions. So just in general, you know, conflict, and I'm just summarizing here from just different texts and stuff, but conflict in a story refers to the struggles or problems that the protagonist or main character face as they attempt to achieve their goals. It's considered a fundamental element of storytelling that drives the narrative forward while creating tension and interest for readers. So in one of my favorite short stories, Araby by James Joyce, the story is it's a very simple premise, right? It's about a young boy who's just trying to buy a gift for a girl he fancies. He just likes a girl in his neighborhood. He wants to buy him a gift. And seems like a simple story. Like if I pitched you that, it's not interesting at all. But then when you throw in conflict, like the conflict is his circumstances that surround him, his age, his status, his family situation. He doesn't have a lot of money. He's a little too young, so he has no way to really travel to the city. He wants to go to this place called Araby, which is like a bazaar, and it has a lot of gifts and trade show things. But when you're a young kid and you have no money, and you have to take the train, you rely on an unreliable parent maybe to give you an allowance. Just the simple goal of buying a gift becomes super conflicted within your existence, and it's really hard and challenging. And it becomes this harrowing tale of like strife and anger. So that's just kind of a simple explanation of how conflict and motivation can create tension and make a story fun. So then let's look at that. Oh, another quote, one of my favorite quotes, like from the Half-Life game series, is the right man in the wrong place can make all the difference. So
I love that quote.
You can be like, so these Hierophants do sound like amazing, like, oh, they're great. They're like heroes of your universe. They're like Neo from the Matrix. Okay, but what are the conflicts and motivations that like drive their personal narratives forward? So we are at the stage of Altera's development as a rapidly growing post-cyberpunk world. There's been problems. There's been cyclical things that have come and gone. There's been rebuilding. We've reached a fork in the road for what these Hierophants are. Because just like their story has evolved from hacker to ambassador to pseudo leader, well, some of them are now being motivated to kind of take the next step in that evolution. You could generally say this is like a type of ruler, or actually becoming a leader of those governments, factions, or corporations. Like instead of being above them, maybe they want to take control of one of them and just go all in on that corporation or that faction's cause. For more or less, they become the shot callers, and not every Hierophant is happy with that.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just one thing I kind of want to add to that is like this mold was not pre-created for the Hierophants when they came into existence. The role of Hierophant in this universe was born out of necessity. All of this data dropped. It changed people's perceptions of what they thought was real and what was fantasy. And someone needed to step up to the plate and translate all of this into something more palatable for the average psyche.
Yep.
So the implications of that, the fact that these people essentially became heroes of the world or anti-heroes, depending on your point of view.
Sure.
Not all of them may have been prepared for the power and the elevation that comes as a result of that. Some of them may have been very unassuming characters who didn't want to be in the spotlight. And I'm sure all of you have had a crappy boss at some point in your life who didn't handle getting the promotion. So you can imagine that there's obviously people in this universe that may not react well. It may fuel some rather unsavory character developments as a result of their heightened role in society. And our story kind of explores that.
Definitely. So yeah, I like Subisire's comment. He goes, "Those future guilds starting drama." Yeah, it's kind of like that. It's like you have these guilds. Like everyone starts out with great intentions. Like, oh yeah, we're gonna get organized. We're gonna rebuild. We're gonna accomplish these goals. But then what happens? It always breaks down. Maybe someone got to loot an item that wasn't their turn, and the guild just fractures, and now you have two guilds. And so like let's explore that on a massive scale though. Like you have this universe that's wreaked by the fallout of cyberpunk technology and war. And they've had about 100 years of progress rebuilding, but now we're again at that fork in the road where someone's mad because you rolled on a magical sword that I was supposed to get. Okay, enough MMO analogies or metaphors. But so yeah, the Hierophants have an ideal or desire for what's best for their respective causes, but Hierophants still have their own internal conflicts and biases. So where they're from, what they've experienced, the reality around them. It's changed them over time, maybe. The influence of existing corporations, governments, and factions, they all play a part in who they are. Not only that, but as we've kind of hinted at, these mythical creatures being confirmed as part of reality, their experience is going to be different based on what they are, right?
That's another good thing to note. Yeah, is there's multiple species in this universe, and they don't all have the same lifespan. Where a human, lives about as long as a human would live in modern day. I've kind of already spoiled the vampire, and they're basically immortal, more or less. And there's other species which I will not disclose for fear of me spoiling them.
We'll get close. We'll get close.
Yeah, 2 or 3 times what a human would live. And something that Phil and I want to explore in this universe is the psychological implications of that. Naturally, somebody who is going to live for hundreds of years is going to perceive reality differently to the way you and I would.
Yep.
And vice versa. If somebody were if someone had a life expectancy of half, that's going to change their perception as well. So we kind of want to explore that, is that this new universe is a melting pot of all of these different species, and they're not all built the same. And it's a matter of how they intermingle with one another and the strife and stories that come as a result of that.
Definitely. And stylistically, we've kind of made the decision to approach that through the lens of some of our popular, or not our popular, but some of our beloved ways to tell stories. So through the lens of myth, horror, psychological horror, and cyberpunk, of course, is a genre that's heavily influencing this. But again, it's important to note that it's post-cyberpunk, so we've kind of opened it up a little bit more to explore those other genres, not just noir or dark and seedy. There might be some high fantasy elements too, juxtaposed with the nature of horror and what it means to live alongside a vampire, right? So it's pretty fun stuff. It's been fun to write, and it's been fun to come up with these ideas. Yeah. And so that takes us to kind of the next step, though. You may be thinking to yourself, like, whoa, this sounds like Neo, or this sounds like this. And I'm interested in that. I think I might want to do something like that. Well, good news, player, because the players will have a part in the development of the game world itself. Based on things like deck building, your customization within the game, maybe an alternate art version of cards, like you'll have a lot of expression into how that affects your deck building. So I'm going to toss it back over to Tyler, and we're going to talk about the TCG side of things. So we've told you about this awesome class of leader that's kind of at a fork in the road, right? Well, who gets to choose what path in the fork in the road that they take? Who gets to choose?
Well, the answer is more or less you, the player.
You.
So yeah, anybody who's played, Commander and Magic or has played Hearthstone, is probably familiar with the concept of like a leader type card, a card or, aspect of the game, which is an extension of the player within the game. And it should come as no surprise that for us, that card is the Hierophant. The idea is that when you are in our universe, you are a Hierophant. You are a powerful seeker of truth and interpreter of arcane data, and you are going to be leading a group of people in a two-player game, and your objective is to deal critical breach, recently coined that one,
Yep.
to the other player before they can do the same for you. So Hierophants, there's two things I can kind of touch on with Hierophants that I can reveal at this point, is they are both a deck building parameter and a piece in the game that can actively do something for you. So I'm going to touch on the deck building aspect first, but in order to do that, I kind of first have to lift the veil a little bit on our universe, because the city of Altera, sorry in advance, Phil, if this hasn't been disclosed, is roughly broken down into 4 quadrants. You cool with me disclosing the names, or?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Cool.
You're going to see it here live. You're getting it live.
That's honestly, just to quickly deviate, the most fun part of these streams is all the things that I said. I'm like, should I have said that? That's part of the magic, right? But anyway, I digress.
You tune in for the spoilers, folks. All right, sorry,
right.
Go ahead.
So there's 4 quadrants of Altera, generally. There's the downtown district, which will be depicted as pink. There is the primes, which is depicted as green. There's Neo-Babylon, which is depicted as blue. And there's Tabula Rasa, which is depicted as violet. And these 4 quadrants coalesce to create our color wheel. With Altera being the setting for this game, it makes sense that the quadrants themselves, the districts, are our color wheel. So the idea with our initial release is that all of the Hierophants that we release, each one will be aligned with one of the districts, and that will kind of serve as their origin story. It'll give you an idea of where they came from, and maybe a little bit of insight into the flavor of like why they are the way that they are. But with that being said, we didn't want the deck building parameters to be so rigid as to restricting players to only playing with one, district, one color, if you will, of card. We wanted players to have that, like Phil said, the ability to express themselves within the context of the game. And what that means for us is opening up the option for different deck building configurations. One thing that's important to note is our resource system does not determine deck building. Deck building is determined solely by your Hierophant, and you'll enjoy the same degree of consistency in your gameplay, regardless of if you're playing 1 district or 2.
Right.
So yeah, with that being said, you will be able to take your single district Hierophant and include a card which we have currently coined as an insignia card, which represents a faction, and that will enable you to play both the Hierophant's core district as well as one of the other 3 adjacent districts of your choice. Which means that for any Hierophant that you want to play, you can choose to play at Mono District, and there will be payoff cards for that. If you're somebody who prefers just playing a very straightforward style of play, we've got you. But for players who want to branch out and kind of take their Hierophant on a journey, there's 3 additional configurations right off of the core experience that you're going to be able to branch into if you'd like. And I think we've kind of, we're currently in talks about some sort of way to balance that. It'll probably be a health reduction to kind of balance the additional flexibility you have in deck building. But that's just one aspect of the Hierophant, is how it allows you to kind of have a lens into Altera and kind of go on a little journey yourself using these insignia cards. The other aspect is the gameplay aspect. And I won't reveal too much about this, but basically Hierophants will, 1, be a primary means of accruing our proprietary stackable resource, which is known as Flux, and they'll also have a little nickel and dime effect that you can use throughout the game. The key is you can't do both in the same turn, however, so Hierophants will be a major element of skill expression in a game, because how you use it will greatly determine the outcome. Maybe you'll spend one game and you'll decide, I really want to gain lots of flux, and maybe there will be another game where you want to lean more into its own unique ability. So yeah, we're hoping that, there will be a little something for everyone as far as Hierophant designs are concerned. Obviously, people have a lot of expectations for design space when trading card games are concerned, and that's one thing that is a very high priority for Phil and I, is we want to be able to have a little something for everybody. If you're somebody that likes playing a control deck, there's probably a control Hierophant for you. But if you're somebody who just wants to, bring the beats, we got you on that front as well. So.
And for those of you that may be watching that are like more on the collecting side of things, we kind of hinted at the fact like having alternate art cards. Like Tyler said, you can choose an insignia that represents your deck building parameter, but maybe you want to have like collect that version of your Hierophant. You may be able to do that. It won't have an impact on the gameplay. It'll just look really awesome for you. You know what I mean?
Right.
So Willie Jim asks a question. He goes, and I think, was that the last bullet point before we jump into Q&A? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just jump right into Q&A then. Because he goes, would there be a lore reason for Hierophants to, quote, battle each other? Wow, what a great question. And it's we always get these questions that are like on the money. It's like people probably think we like are asking folks, hey, will you ask this question during the live stream, please, so we can talk about it? But no, it's a great question. And since we've just spoiled the districts, I think we can maybe spoil Sabotage at Synedrio.
I think so.
So, yeah, Willie. So basically, like we were talking about, the Hierophants are at that fork in the road, right? Some are starting to maybe take advantage of their role as leaders. Hyrophant Darley. As long as he has a cowboy hat. Okay, so like I said, the Hierophants are at this fork in the road. Some of them may be overextending their role as leaders amongst people. And anytime you overstep your bounds or maybe overstay your welcome, that creates a conflict. So this takes us to a present day emergency that's emerged. So 2399, you guys have no idea of the backstory, but every autumn, this group called the Grand Nexus Consortium, the 4 districts we just talked about, the current governing body of Altera organizes Synedrio. It's a multi-day conference. It's attended by representatives from all 4 of those districts. They all come together to kind of talk about the development of Altera, what's going on. Of course, and I'm paraphrasing our backstory, you can get the full backstory on our Kickstarter product, which comes out in a couple months. But basically, coming soon. But effectively, the Hierophants are starting to gain more power, and the government is starting to feel a little nervous about that, right? So there's, at this year's Synedrio, claims are brought up about one particular Hierophant known only as screen name Nero, and their private investigations into Redacted, one of the factions, close redaction, and their secretive deals with Redacted and what is brought to light. So essentially, one of the Hierophants is kind of firing the first shot and like, quote, taking over, if you will, or what seems to be a threatening blow to the government of Altera.
Right.
So 3 days after those allegations are made, an attack by an unknown terrorist group disrupt the critical proceedings of that whole government action, right? Just completely destroys the order and spins it into chaos. In the wake of that ensuing panic, all the Hierophants and factions are kind of like converging onto this seat of power, if you will, and trying to make sense of not only the chaotic terrorist attack, but also like what's going on with the Hierophants. Is someone really trying to take over? Maybe you don't like that. Maybe you like things the way they've been designed. Things were working great for Altera. There's been 100 years of progress, and now someone's trying to change that? Or someone's trying to like pull the reins? Hold on, that's not good. So
hit the brakes.
Yeah, hit the brakes. So there's now tensions within this Grand Nexus. They've breached a critical threshold. Oh, did you hear that proprietary term, breached? No, I'm just kidding. They've breached a critical threshold as powerful players within Alteran society search for answers to the source of the reasoning behind the attack. But no matter one's point of view, the current era of perceived peace and progress is on the edge of corruption as ruthless opportunists vie for control amidst a city reeling from the terrorist attack. So the masses look to the Hierophants once more for guidance and answers as the world around them explodes towards an uncertain future. So effectively, you have someone taking a shot and maybe making a play at power, and then you have a whole nother batch of their kind saying, no, dude, not yet. Or maybe not at all. And so you as the player, as the Hierophant, you're going to control an operation to either fight for a cause or maybe defend one. And that is our central conflict. And there is, for those of you on Twitter following us, we do Flashback Fridays. We have all those timeline data drops coming out. Just hang in there. It's leading to like more of this backstory that will make the Sabotage of Synedrio kind of fit into the bigger picture. But Willie, that's the conflict. So yeah, I know terrorists aren't a good thing. It's not. It's also kind of a catch-all for a mysterious attacker. Like we don't know who is behind it. That's a question you, the players, are going to have to find out, through playing the game and seeing how the narrative unfolds. I'm a big fan, obviously we're big fans of Magic, the Dominaria unit, like how they've shifted that story and how they've told these cool stories across planes. We're a cyberpunk game. Our story has to unfold within a sprawling city and sprawling city states known as districts. So we have our own aim at something similar, and that's where you come in and you kind of get to express that with the way you play the game. So great question. Subi, oh, I hope the bad guy is Christopher Walken. Well, I mean, I don't think I can afford that, but I like where your head's at.
Yeah. We're in talks with Chris.
Yeah.
He's on our list.
I don't even know if he knows what a TCG is, but I should try and do that impression, but I'm not going to live. All right. What else we got? Anything to add to that, Tyler, while I look up our social media for Q&A? And if you're watching, appreciate you guys tuning in. Drop your questions. Anything you guys want to ask about the game, we'll spoil what we can, and we won't spoil other things. But
I mean, you might as well just rename these to data leaks at this point, because I'm just out here spoiling everything.
Data leaks.
Yeah, no, one thing that is very important to Phil and I is player immersion. We feel like it's one of the primary draws of TCGs as a genre, and we've definitely built our story around that. It is set on a futuristic Earth, so suspend your disbelief. It's not unthinkable that the developments in the story could be reality. As strange as that would be, this is indeed Earth. That definitely extends to, the way we've developed the story in tandem with the game is like we definitely want players to feel as though they have skin in the game, that they are kind of telling the story as well in the way that they play. And we've kind of talked about optimal ways to maybe properly integrate that. Nothing to share just yet, but we definitely want people to feel as though they are helping sculpt the narrative of, Altera and the Hyrophant universe alongside us.
Yep. It's fun because like the setting in Magic, like to do apples to oranges or apples to apples, like in Magic, the pitch is you're two dueling wizards and you have all this power and you're fighting each other with your magical powers. That's cool. Why are the Hierophants fighting? You're not summoning magical creatures to play. You're literally influencing people to fight for you, essentially, or, buying or managing funds to kind of complete strategic operations to overcome your opponent's cause. So we want that to feel as deep as it does to just like arbitrarily say, oh, you're two powerful wizards dueling. Well, no, let's put some narrative stakes, and then you, the player, this is happening right now. Your tabletop game is essentially the present moment of the narrative. So if you choose this character and align with this faction, you've kind of written a story. That's what that Hierophant has gone down and done. And so like, one of the spoiled factions is the Wirewolves. They're a hacktivist gang of werewolves. And so if you really want this particular Hierophant to align with that cause, well, go for it. Hope it works out for you. And maybe if you win the regional tournament, you get to design a card with that. No, I hope that would be an awesome thing to see.
Definitely.
So we are approaching the 35-minute mark. Do we have, Willie Jim says, and force him to battle in my stead? Can I capture other Hierophants? Well, if you win the game, that's up to you. If you win the battle, I don't know. Can't really capture them, but they'll probably make a tactical retreat. Like the Hierophants are not they're not on the battlefield like carrying they're not that dumb. These guys are pulling strings from the shadows, from the HQ. Maybe they're in a rig. That's the other thing about the Hierophants. Because they're like a class of leader, it kind of opens up design space for different types of them. You may have a Hierophant and his ability may show something like that, where it's like he may impact the battlefield, but thus that makes him more vulnerable to physical attacks. Whereas, you may have another Hierophant whose style is all about digital manipulation. So it may be harder to attack that Hierophant, but the way you play the deck is totally different, right? So yeah, excellent question, but not quite, he's not your king on the board that can be captured. He's kind of more powerful than that in a sense. Your king on your board will be things that you include in your deck, essentially. And, hopefully you get your king out and the other Hierophant doesn't have something up his sleeve to just completely neutralize him, So yeah, any questions, guys? We got 5 viewers. Appreciate it. If you haven't hit the follow button, please do so. And
thanks, guys. Appreciate all the communication. Got a lot of comments, and it means a lot. It's a lot of fun engaging with everybody. So,
Spencer, what's up, buddy?
Oh, what's up, Spencer?
Hey, he says, yeah, Spencer Croft. He says, I remember with yourself, Phil, and playtesting, etc. Playing against Phil and playing against Tyler on a regular basis, playtesting. I'm looking forward to this so much. Are you going to be avoiding the infinite combo type metas? Great question. Yeah, so for those watching though, there was a period in time where we were designing this game like in Fanatics, and like I was playing on a computer in Fanatics, and people were like, "What are you doing?" And I was like, "Oh man, Tyler's designed this card game. I'm helping him playtest." And like we talked about last episode, the timing just wasn't right. But now we're moving forward. So awesome comment. Thank you for watching, Spencer. That's crazy. So to your question, I'm going to toss it to Tyler. Will there
Yeah.
be infinite combo type metas? Great question.
Um, maybe not on purpose. Gotta wonder how many infinite combos in Magic were just like born on accident. Like, oops, didn't think of that interaction, or oh, that card came out 7 years ago, and this is in a modern format. I definitely think that there are players who enjoy playing combo decks, and combo decks are kind of perpetually on thin ice in game design because there's definitely combos that are okay to play against, and there's ones that can be pretty degenerate and unfun to play against.
Yep.
I definitely think that it's important as a trading card game that you appeal to every type of player. To that end, I definitely think that there does need to be some sort of combo strategy. Whether or not it is infinite, um, probably not. Just due to the nature of our board, we're very parameterized. The infinite probably won't naturally occur very often in our game, so rest assured about that. I think that that's something that I'd be paying a lot of attention to as we design a larger set of cards. Is how does the combo player get to play? Does this combo feel uninteractive? Does it feel like unfun to play against? Does the game end immediately, or does the other player have to sit through a bunch of rubbish that they don't want to sit through?
Right.
I definitely think that there's a way to design combos that are a net positive in terms of player experience, both on the dealing and receiving end.
Right.
So
It's
to answer
also
your question, sorry, go
oh,
ahead.
well, I think that was a great answer because at the end of the day, me and you both spend a lot of time in Magic, and we all know like sometimes when that combo goes off, it probably wasn't a designed interaction they wanted to happen. It feels kind of weird and bad. Now, it can be
Yeah,
fun doing that, but you have to remember they have a massive library of cards, and there's unintended consequences with that massive library of cards. Where for what Tyler's doing and designing kind of like from the ground up, and we have all the past knowledge, like we're not making a game from the 90s when before this type of card game existed. He has a
right.
lot of time invested in these types of games. So hopefully, we'll catch anything that doesn't feel fun. That being said, I just wanted to touch on one other concept that we are taking the approach similar to Magic though, where you do want to have certain cards for every type of player. The traditional terms is like Timmy, Johnny, Spike. That's definitely in our mind as we move forward with different archetypes. So Willie asks a question. Um, I understand. So, and also, Subi, if that doesn't quite answer the question, by all means, keep commenting. We appreciate it in the chat.
It's a
Willie
good question.
says, I understand there is to be a lore book, but do you plan to have any expanded game plans? Oops, the chat just moved. I can't. Do you have any expanded game plans like a pseudo D&D or Gloomhaven to actually play out scenarios or major plot pieces? Wow. I will tell you this. The world book, like I told you, we're designing it as, or like I told people in previous episodes, it's a system agnostic kind of encyclopedia narrative. So it could be used as a supplement to existing RPGs, but we have looked at some game systems that we would love to like meld the two. But the thing is, we are trying to stay true to our goals, and our goals are create an awesome narrative universe and have an awesome TCG. And it's not fair to really try to develop an awesome RPG just yet. That may be something later down the road, or or hopefully, I'm sure Tyler will agree. Hopefully, maybe someone will see this narrative and the TCG and think, man, I kind of want to help them develop an RPG. So maybe another RPG system or company can step up and help with that. Obviously, it's something we're interested in. I mean, we have our idea books, so we'd love to do that. But right now, the product phases are phase one, encyclopedic world book that you could use as a system agnostic supplement to any of your science fiction or role-playing games. And then phase two, awesome TCG based on all that lore. Maybe in the future we'll do like a D&D style system, but probably not going to start from scratch unless someone's like, I have a system, and maybe we can
Right.
talk. We'll see what happens.
Right. Yeah, the big thing for Phil and I is like, we don't want to stretch ourselves too thin. At the end of the day, we're just two dudes making this huge universe. And especially for like, an initial offering for a publishing handle, it's very easy, and you see it often for like indie companies to promise the world, promise this whole like thriving ecosystem of products. And we're not saying no to that. We just want to be realistic. We want to just temper people's expectations that we will be taking this,
Right.
step at a time. We have an established roadmap that we think is realistic and sustainable.
Right.
But as things go on, who's to say we don't expand, to all of those other things.
Definitely. Subi Sire says, no, take another turn after this one cards. Cool.
So Subi, actually, take an extra turn is a evergreen mechanic in our game.
Just take another
But
turn.
our turn structures are not what you might be expecting.
Right.
Our
Right.
turns consist of single actions, so taking an extra turn isn't quite as degenerate as Time Walk in Magic would be.
Right.
But rest assured, we've actually considered how unfun that sort of feeling is, and we've designed our turn structure around that. You have the ability to react more or less to every action the other person makes. So there will be take an extra turn, but it's not that powerful.
Right. Yep. So great questions though, man. Really do appreciate it, Spencer. Willie Jim says, while still incorporating the TCG deck building battles. That's kind of the idea though. Like the RPG narrative, if someone plays an RPG version of the game, they're kind of like exploring the world, and the battles that break out on the ground level, the street level, that's kind of what the TCG is representing. So there's probably ways that I'm sure there will be ways to integrate that if it hasn't already been done. So we'll see what comes from that. We do have some systems in mind, but right now we're focused on awesome lore, and then put that lore on some holographic trading cards for people to collect and battle with their friends. And for, fun fact, the kanji in our logo is City of Battles. So it's more or less, we're looking for that street level conflict, and that's a nice thing to touch on too, because it's not like a hacking game or a technology game. It's like, what about the street level conflicts that break out in a world like this? All right, so let's scroll back down.
Oh yeah, Willie Jim, alternate win conditions are a lot of fun, and that is definitely something that we would explore as well.
If you lose, you actually win.
Yeah, those sorts of things are cool, right? Like they kind of flip the script.
I think a lot of Magic players go through their mill phase, where they're like, I'm going to win by decking you out. So
right.
We'll have to see how that shapes up in the context. But
sure.
So yeah, any more questions, guys? Appreciate all the participation. It's really helping us out. If you haven't yet, follow us on social media, your channel of choice. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Twitch, YouTube. That's about it for now. We will be launching a Discord later once we have some, it'll probably coincide with playtesting to motivate you guys to join the community. So it's like, if you want to playtest and get a copy of the game early, you're going to have to be a community member. So hang in there if you're looking for a Discord. Willie Jim says Flux card game is notorious for alt win conditions. That's right. There is a game called Flux where every card changes the rules. That's
really?
Yeah, it's a fun party game for sure. This is definitely, we're not a party game. Just to put it out there, we are a competitive TCG. So you won't be slamming a card that just now says, "Oh, everybody get up and change chairs." And so, but
let me scrap that design.
Oh man, my bad. Musical chairs was a card. But for people who like that, I'm gonna do a shameless plug though. For people who like that though, we will have other games in the Fanatics publishing line that may appeal to the casual gamer. So stay tuned.
Definitely.
All right. Last chance for questions, guys. We're pushing 45 minutes, which I appreciate. And I'm not mad at you. I'm not mad at you.
No, it's a lot of fun doing this. So.
Yep. Hyrophant 2, Underground Party Sim. Okay. Let's go for it. Can we get a Sims chapter? Like, could that just be a sci-fi Sims?
We'll see.
Have your little Hyrophant walk around with that symbol on top of his head? I don't know. All right. Well, I think we've spoiled enough stuff.
Enough for 1 week.
If you want to get any more spoilers, tune in next time. But that's going to conclude. I'm Phil.
I'm Tyler.
And we will see you next time. We need a catchy phrase like "catch you on the Grand Nexus," or I'm just kidding. Do you know how cyberpunk games, they all have those catchphrases? "See you on the nets." We'll figure ours out. That's our homework, to get a cool catchphrase. If you have one, post it on our social media and we'll share it if it's good enough. But only if it's good enough. All right, guys, you take it easy.
Take care, guys. See you next week.